I packed 6 years of my life into boxes while my wife was out dancing with another man. And when she came home at 3 in the morning expecting me to still be there waiting for her drama, she found empty closets and a note that said exactly what she told me to do. Let me tell you how I got to that point, because it didn't happen overnight. And honestly, looking back now, I should have seen it coming way earlier than I did. Mira and I had been together for 6 years, married for 4 of those. And for the first few years, everything felt normal. You know, the kind of relationship where you're building something together, making plans, talking about the future, all that stuff people do when they think they've found their person. But somewhere around year 4, things started shifting, and not in the subtle way where you wake up one day and realize you've grown apart, but in this slow, deliberate way that made me feel like I was being edged out of my own relationship. She got a new job at a consulting firm downtown, better pay, better benefits, and I was genuinely happy for her because she'd worked hard to get there and deserved the opportunity. The problem wasn't the job itself, it was everything that came with it. The late nights at the office, the constant after-work happy hours, the weekend team-building events that somehow never included spouses, and suddenly I was eating dinner alone 4, sometimes 5 nights a week. At first I didn't think much of it because new jobs are demanding and she was trying to prove herself. But then she started talking about Aiden, her best guy friend from work, and it wasn't just casual mentions, it was constant. Like Aiden became the 3rd person in our marriage without ever stepping foot in our apartment. Every conversation somehow circled back to him, about how funny he was, how they grabbed lunch together, how he gave her career advice. And I'm not the jealous type. I'm really not. But there's a difference between having work friends and essentially replacing your spouse with someone else. I tried bringing it up carefully, not accusatory, just honest, telling her I felt like we weren't connecting anymore and asking if maybe we could set aside some time just for us. But she looked at me like I'd suggested something ridiculous and told me I was being insecure, that this is what modern friendships look like, as if I was some dinosaur who couldn't understand that men and women could be friends. And maybe they can. I'm not saying they can't. But when you're texting someone until midnight every night and your husband is sitting right next to you being ignored, that's not friendship, that's replacement. The arguments got more frequent, not screaming matches, but these cold, dismissive conversations where she'd make me feel crazy for even bringing it up. And I started wondering if maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was being the insecure, controlling husband she kept implying I was. But then came that night, the one that changed everything. And I remember every detail because it was the moment I realized I wasn't crazy, I was just done. She came out of the bedroom wearing this tight black dress I'd never seen before. The tags were still in the shopping bag on our bed, heels that made her 3 inches taller, and she'd put on that expensive perfume she only wore for special occasions. The one I'd bought her for our anniversary that she said she was saving for something important. I asked if she was going out again, trying to keep my voice neutral, and she said she just needed to blow off some steam. I asked if it was with Aiden, and she rolled her eyes like I'd just asked the dumbest question in the world, telling me it was a group thing, but she wouldn't look at me when she said it, just kept checking her phone and smiling at messages I couldn't see. I stood there in our living room, watching her grab her purse and her phone, and something in me just broke, not dramatically, but quietly, like when you've been bending something for so long that it finally just snaps. I asked her if she even wanted to be married anymore, and she stopped, turned around, and looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Cold and annoyed, like I was a problem she had to deal with before she could go have fun. "If you don't like how I live my life, then leave," she said. And then she walked out the door, and I heard her heels clicking down the hallway until the elevator dinged and she was gone. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes, just staring at the door, and then I did something I'd never done before. I took her seriously. I pulled out my phone and called Wes, my buddy from college who lived 20 minutes away, told him I needed his truck and about 3 hours of his time, and to his credit he didn't ask questions, just said he'd be there in 15. Then I called my brother Jack and told him to bring boxes and maybe one more friend with a car. By the time Mira got home at 3 in the morning, smelling like vodka and wearing cologne that definitely wasn't mine, I was gone. Every piece of clothing I owned, every book, every item that was purely mine, packed into Wes's truck and my brother's SUV. I left her engagement ring on the kitchen counter next to her coffee maker where she'd see it first thing, left my keys beside it, left our wedding photo face down on the table, and left a note under the ring that said exactly 4 words. "You were right. Goodbye." I took one last look at the apartment we'd shared, at the life I'd tried so hard to build, and I felt nothing but relief. The next morning, I woke up on Wes's couch with 17 missed calls and about 40 text messages, and watching them come in was like watching someone go through all 5 stages of grief in real time. The first few messages were angry. "Where the hell are you?" And "You took your stuff like a thief. Are you serious right now?" Then they shifted to confused. "Is this some kind of joke?" And "Are you really that petty?" And then they got desperate. "We need to talk." And "You're being childish." And finally, "Please, just answer me." I didn't respond to a single one, not because I was playing games or trying to hurt her, but because there was genuinely nothing left to say. She'd told me to leave if I didn't like how she lived her life, and I'd done exactly that. End of story. But Mira wasn't the type to accept silence. She needed a reaction, needed the drama, needed me to come crawling back so she could feel like she had the power, and when I didn't give her that, she escalated. 2 days after I left, she showed up at Wes's apartment at 11 at night, pounding on the door hard enough that his neighbors came out to look and yelling my name. "Alex, I know you're in there. And stop being ridiculous. We need to talk like adults." Wes opened the door, told her I wasn't there, which was true because I'd already moved to my brother Jack's place across town, and she actually tried to push past him to check for herself until he stepped into the doorway and told her if she didn't leave, he was calling the cops. She left, but not before screaming, "You're a coward, Alex," loud enough for the whole building to hear. Running away doesn't solve anything, which was rich coming from someone who'd spent the last 2 years running away from our marriage into another man's arms. The next week, she showed up at my workplace, somehow talked her way past the security desk by saying she was my wife and had forgotten something important, and cornered me in the hallway outside my office. She looked terrible, hair messy like she hadn't washed it in days, no makeup, wearing sweatpants, and one of my old college hoodies that she must have found in the back of the closet, and she started this whole speech about how we could fix things, and how every marriage goes through rough patches, and how she was willing to go to counseling. I just stood there, didn't engage, didn't argue, and when she realized I wasn't going to respond, she grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks and asked, "Do you even care about me anymore?" with tears running down her face. I pulled my arm back, told her she needed to leave, and walked into my office and closed the door, and I could hear her standing there crying in the hallway for a good 5 minutes before she finally left. Security escorted her out after she refused to go on her own. And my boss Eleanor pulled me aside that afternoon to ask if everything was okay, told me that if I needed to file a restraining order, the company would support me and document everything. I thanked her and told her I was handling it, but honestly, I wasn't sure what handling it even meant at that point. I changed my phone number that same day, gave the new one only to family and close friends, and started the process of separating our lives in every way possible. I met with a lawyer named Diana Holland. This sharp woman in her 50s who'd been practicing family law for 20 years and had seen every manipulation tactic in the book. And the first thing she said to me after hearing my story was, "Let me guess, she's going to claim she's pregnant next," like she'd written the playbook herself. She walked me through the divorce process, helped me separate our bank accounts, change my address on all my documents, and file the paperwork to officially end things. Mira tried reaching me through mutual friends, through social media, through my brother, but I'd already told everyone not to pass along messages, that if she wanted to communicate, she could do it through her lawyer once she got one. About 3 weeks after I left, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize, and when I opened it, I saw it was from Mira using someone else's phone. The message said, "Alex, I'm pregnant, and we need to talk about our baby, and you can't just abandon your own child." My first reaction was panic, that sick feeling in your stomach when your whole world shifts. But then I did the math and realized it was impossible. We hadn't been intimate in over 2 months, maybe closer to 3, and I'd actually been tracking that in my head because the lack of physical connection had been another sign of how far apart we drifted. I forwarded the message to Diana, told her it was a lie, and she actually laughed and said called it, and that it was actually good that Mira had tried this because it showed a pattern of manipulation that would help our case if things got messy. Diana sent a formal letter to Mira through her address on file, stating that any further contact outside of legal channels would be considered harassment, threatening legal action if she continued, and requesting a pregnancy test if she wanted to make that claim officially, knowing full well there wouldn't be one. The messages stopped after that, at least for a while. What I didn't expect was the reaction from everyone else in our lives. Myra's parents called my brother, demanded to know what I'd done to their daughter, said I'd abandoned her when she needed me most, that I was throwing away a good woman over nothing. My brother Jack, bless him, told them exactly what had been going on, how she disrespected me for months, how she'd prioritized another man over her marriage, how she'd literally told me to leave, and her dad actually said, well, she didn't mean it like that, as if words don't have consequences. Jack told them, then she shouldn't have said it, and they hung up on him. My parents, on the other hand, were supportive in that quiet way parents are when they don't want to say, I told you so. But you know they're thinking it. My mom had never been Myra's biggest fan, always said she seemed self-centered and that I gave more than I got. And my dad just told me he was proud of me for respecting myself enough to walk away. That too many men stay in situations like mine and lose themselves completely. The strangest part was hearing about Aiden's reaction through the grapevine. Apparently, he'd reached out to Mira after I left, not to comfort her or start something, but to distance himself from the whole situation. One of Myra's co-workers who I'd met a few times at company events reached out to me through LinkedIn, told me that Aiden had told people at work, look, I thought they had some kind of open thing going on, and I never meant to cause problems. This is way too much drama for me. I'm out. He basically dropped her the second things got real, stopped answering her calls, started avoiding her at work, and within a month he was posting pictures with a completely different girl. Which would have been funny if it wasn't so predictable. The guy who was so interested when she was married suddenly wanted nothing to do with her when she was available and came with baggage. Meanwhile, I was starting to build something that actually felt like a life again. I was sleeping better, not great, but better than I had in months. No more lying awake wondering where she was or who she was with. I started going to the gym every morning before work, not to get ripped or prove anything, just to have a routine and clear my head, and it felt good to have control over something again. I was staying at Jack's place and helping him with his house projects on weekends, painting his fence, fixing his deck, replacing his garbage disposal, doing normal things that didn't involve walking on eggshells around someone else's mood or wondering if I was about to get hit with another "you're being insecure" conversation. I started looking at apartments, small one-bedroom places where I could start over, and honestly, the idea of having my own space, my own quiet, my own life without constant tension felt better than any relationship ever had. 3 months after I left, my parents invited me to their monthly family dinner, the kind of thing we'd been doing since I was a kid, just casual Sunday evening at their place with good food and better company. And I was actually looking forward to it because things were starting to feel normal again. I pulled up to their house around 5, walked in through the side door like I always did, and my mom was in the kitchen making her famous pot roast, the smell hitting me the second I stepped inside. My dad was in the living room watching a game. Jack was already there helping set the table, and everything felt easy and comfortable, the kind of comfortable I'd forgotten existed. Then the doorbell rang, and I knew immediately something was wrong, because nobody rings the doorbell at my parents' house. You just walk in if you're family. You knock if you're a friend, but you don't ring the doorbell unless you're a stranger or you're not sure you're welcome. My mom wiped her hands on her apron and went to answer it, and I heard her voice change from warm to cold in about 2 seconds flat. Mira was standing on the porch, and she looked different from the last time I'd seen her. More put together, hair done professionally, makeup perfect, wearing a dress that looked expensive and new, like she tried to recreate the version of herself from before everything fell apart, like she thought looking good would somehow undo everything. She asked if she could come in, said she just needed 5 minutes to talk to me, that she'd been trying to reach me for weeks, and this was her last option, that she deserved at least a chance to explain. My mom, bless her heart, said, "This is a family dinner and you're not invited," firm but not mean, and Mira started crying right there on the porch. Real tears, not the manipulative kind, saying, "I love him, and we can fix everything if he'd just give me a chance. And please, I've changed. I quit my job. I blocked Aiden. What more do you want from me?" I walked to the door, stood behind my mom, and looked at Mira for the first time in months, really looked at her, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no love, just this empty space where all those feelings used to be. She saw me and her face lit up like she thought she'd won something, like my presence meant I was willing to listen, and she started talking fast, tripping over her words, saying she'd made mistakes, but that every couple goes through hard times, that she understood now what she'd done wrong, that therapy could help us, that she'd do anything. I let her finish, let her say everything she needed to say, and the whole time my dad and Jack had moved behind me, this silent wall of support. And when she finally stopped talking and looked at me with these desperate, hopeful eyes, I spoke for the first time in months directly to her. "You told me to leave if I didn't like how you lived your life," I said, keeping my voice calm and level, not angry, just stating facts. "I did exactly what you asked. She tried to interrupt, tried to say, I didn't mean it like that. But I kept going, because this needed to be said. You ignored every boundary I asked for. I told her. You disrespected me for months. I continued. You chose him over our marriage every single day. And when I finally had enough, you acted like I was the problem. Jack stepped forward slightly, just enough that she could see him, and added, and then you faked a pregnancy, which made her face go red. Her sister's car pulled up then, must have been waiting around the corner, and Myra's sister got out and tried to pull her away, saying, come on, this isn't working, we need to go. But Mira pulled her arm back. She was full-on sobbing now, mascara running down her face, and she looked at my parents and said, please, talk to him. Tell him he's making a mistake. And my mom just shook her head and said the only mistake he made was staying as long as he did. Mira turned back to me, begging, don't throw away 6 years like they meant nothing. And I felt my dad's hand on my shoulder as he said, Mira, you need to leave, and if you come back, we will call the police. Her sister finally got her into the car, practically dragging her, and Mira was screaming through the window, I'm sorry, Alex, I'm so sorry, as they drove away. We all stood there for a moment, just watching the taillights disappear, and then my mom closed the door, gave me the biggest hug, and said, I am so proud of you for standing your ground. That took real strength. We ate dinner that night, all of us together, and nobody mentioned what had just happened. We just talked about normal things, about Jack's new job opportunity at a tech company in Austin, about my dad's golf game, and how he'd finally broken 90, about my mom's book club and the drama over their latest pick, and it felt good, felt right, felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The legal stuff wrapped up faster after that. Mira stopped fighting the divorce, agreed to all the terms Diana had laid out, signed everything without argument, and 6 months after I walked out with my boxes and my dignity, the divorce was finalized. I'd already bought a small house by then, nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom place with a yard and a garage, the kind of place where I could breathe and think and not feel like I was constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. I furnished it slowly, piece by piece, getting things that I actually liked instead of compromising on everything. A big comfortable couch, a proper desk for my home office, a grill for the backyard. And every time I walked through the door, I felt this sense of peace that I hadn't felt in years. I built a routine that was mine: work, gym, home projects, dinners with family, drinks with Wes on Fridays. And it was simple and quiet and exactly what I needed. About 4 months after the divorce was final, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize, and for a second I thought about just deleting it without reading it. But curiosity got the better of me. It was Mira, must have gotten a new phone or borrowed someone's again, and the message was different from all the others. No manipulation, no begging, no drama, just a simple statement. I hope you're happy. You deserved better than what I gave you. I stared at that message for a long time, thought about all the things I could say back, all the anger I could unload, all the hurt I could throw in her face, but none of it seemed worth it anymore. I typed back 2 words, I know. And then I blocked the number, deleted the conversation, and went back to my life. But here's the thing, about 6 months after that, I ran into one of her old coworkers at a coffee shop downtown, the same one who'd messaged me about Aiden, and we got to talking. Turns out Mira never found another consulting job. The industry's pretty small, and word had gotten around about the drama. So she ended up working retail at some department store, a massive step down from where she'd been. And Aiden? He'd gotten engaged to someone else about 4 months after everything went down, some analyst from a different department, and they just bought a house together. The co-worker showed me Aiden's Instagram, and there he was, looking happy with his new fiancée, like Mira had never even existed. As for me, I was sitting there in that coffee shop on a Saturday morning, no plans except maybe hitting the hardware store and working on my fence, drinking good coffee in peace, and I realized I hadn't felt this content in years. The thing nobody tells you about walking away from someone who doesn't respect you is how much lighter you feel after, not immediately, but gradually, like you've been carrying this weight for so long that you forgot it was there until suddenly it's gone. I learned that you can't make someone respect you, you can't argue them into it or love them into it or sacrifice enough to earn it. They either respect you or they don't. And if they don't, the only thing you can do is respect yourself enough to leave. Mira thought I was bluffing that night when she told me to leave. Thought I'd sit there and take it like I'd been taking everything else. Thought she could have her marriage and her freedom and her attention from other men all at the same time without consequences. But I wasn't bluffing. I was just done trying to fix something that only I wanted to fix. done being made to feel crazy for having basic expectations, done living in a relationship where I was always the problem. She tested me, and I passed by failing her test, by choosing myself over her drama, by packing my boxes and walking away while she was out living her life like I didn't matter. The last time I drove past our old apartment building, I didn't feel anything. No nostalgia, no regret, no what-ifs, just gratitude that I'd had the strength to leave when I did. Some people will test your boundaries just to see if you'll enforce them, and when you finally do, they'll act shocked that you meant what you said. Mira wanted freedom without losing security, wanted to explore other options while keeping me as a backup plan. And when I refused to play that role, she couldn't understand why I wouldn't fight for her. But here's the truth, I did fight for her. For 2 years I fought while she pulled away, and the night I stopped fighting wasn't the night I gave up on our marriage. It was the night I finally started fighting for myself instead. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories.